Hello everyone. Today we're going to go over how to card a piece of evidence. So firstly, we're going to go over to the evidence that we're trying to cut over here. We have an article by Politico writing about the Supreme Court's recent holding about gender-affirming care for minors in Tennessee. So the first thing that we'll look for is the part of the article that we're trying to cut. So let's say we're just trying to cut the part of the article that's talking about what the court actually held and what the result was among the justices. So we'll scroll down here and we see the first two paragraphs here will help us a lot. It says that the court affirmed a ban on gender affirming care, and furthermore that the ruling was 6-3. So we'll first click Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac to copy the evidence, and we'll go over to our Google Doc and click Control V or Command V on your Mac to paste it into the document. Now, Rainmakers usually likes for evidence when the core of the evidence that's going to be read into the round to be in Times New Roman. So we'll go to our font section and click Times New Roman. If you can't find it in your Recents tab, you can scroll down here and it will probably be in this larger section where you can find Times New Roman. So we'll click that, and then we'll also make sure that our font size is 12, not like 20, which will make it too big. 12 is the size that we want to have so that you can read the evidence around and be able to see it in a natural size. After this, we'll make sure that all the text here is in black. You see this is in blue, so we'll make all of this black. And then we'll choose which parts of the evidence we actually want to read into the round. So I think I would want to read this sentence here, has upheld the Tennessee law. And then probably here in the 6-3 ruling, you probably don't need to have the Wednesday part, so we'll not underline that. The court's conservative majority rejected a challenge, so like that. So we'll read all of the parts that are underlined, but not read the parts that aren't underlined. And the parts that aren't underlined, we'll make sure that that's in size 10, like that. So then, there we go. We have the parts of the evidence we want to read. And then at the beginning, you can put the bracket and then quotation marks. And then at the end, a bracket and quotation marks like that. So there's the evidence that we want to read. But that's only half the job. We still have to cite the evidence in NCFCA formatting rules. So to do that, we'll go over back to our page, and we'll look for a few key things. Firstly, we'll look for the author. Here he is, Mr. Josh Gerstein. So we will write that down in bold in Times New Roman in 12. So Josh Gerstein, like that. We also have our source, Politico. So we'll also write that down, comma, Politico, still in Times New Roman, 12 and bold. And then finally, we will have the date, which was June 18th, 2025. So we'll write that down again as June 18th, 2025, in bold Times New Roman 12. Then we will go to Times New Roman still, but in 10 and in italics. And then we'll have two parentheses to write down the credentials of the source, Mr. Josh Gerstein. So we'll click on this usually. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Josh Gerstein, like that. And we'll click on this person's bio, and here we see that he's the senior legal affairs reporter for Politico. So we'll write that down. He is the senior legal affairs correspondent for Politico. That just tells us, well, why does he have any authority to speak on this? And when you actually read this evidence into round, you'll say something like, according to Josh Gerstein, the senior legal affairs correspondent writing for Politico in June of 2025. So you'll make sure to read that part of the credentials as well. So we got that part done. Then we have quotation marks to write down the title of the evidence. Now, a good hack for this is, again, to Control-C the URL here. Control-C, Control-V. And then if you click space in Google Docs, you'll see that it turns blue and underlined. And if you click upon that link, you'll see here this option to replace URL with its title. So you'll click yes, and then click this button here to remove the link. So then we have the title correct, and then we paste it, and then we click Control V again to paste in the URL, and then we write down the access. And today is the 18th, so June 18th, 2025, and then by your initials. And you can, again, click unlink here to remove the link. So there we go. To review, in any citation of evidence, you need to have the author, the source, and then the date. All of this is in bold Times New Roman 12. And then after this, in Times New Roman 10 italics, you will have the credentials for the author, in this case Josh Gerstein. You will have the title of the article, then you will have the URL for the article, and then you will have the access date and your initials after this. The core evidence, you'll have quotation marks at the beginning and the end. You'll be in Times New Roman underlined 12 for the parts you will read, and then you will minimize to Times New Roman 10 the parts you won't read. Thanks.